The water here has a color I never trusted. Dark green near the marsh, almost black where the channel deepens. My husband used to say it looked like it was keeping secrets. He was right about that. He just didn't know the secret it was keeping was about our own family. We lived in a white clapboard house on the edge of Beaufort, South Carolina. One of those old homes with a wide porch and shutters that needed painting every few years, whether you liked it or not. My husband and I had moved there 31 years ago, young and stubborn and certain that the salt air would be good for us. It was. For a long time, it really was. We raised 2 daughters in that house. My older daughter was sharp and restless, the kind of child who always had a plan, always had her eye on something just out of reach. My younger daughter was quieter. She loved the marsh the way I did, not for what it could give you, but just for what it was. She used to sit at the end of our dock with her shoes off and her feet hanging over the water, reading, for hours. I can still see her there. I think I will always be able to see her there. My younger daughter died 4 years ago. The official report said it was a kayaking accident. She went out alone on a Tuesday morning, which she did often enough that no one thought anything of it, and she didn't come back. They found the kayak overturned near Paris Island. They found her 2 days later. She was 29 years old. I want you to understand how grief works when you lose a child. It doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in pieces. At strange times, in strange places. I would be standing in the cereal aisle at the grocery store, and suddenly I could not breathe. I would hear a song on the radio and have to pull the car over. My husband and I held each other up for a long time after that. The way 2 damaged things can sometimes lean against each other and still stand. My older daughter was devastated, or so I believed. She flew home immediately, stayed for 2 weeks, cried at the service, helped me write the obituary. Her husband, the man she had married 3 years before the accident, was there too, quiet and respectful, bringing casseroles from neighbors to the door and keeping the coffee going. I was grateful. I told them both how grateful I was. They had married young, my older daughter and her husband. She was 26, he was 30. She had met him at a real estate conference in Charlotte and called me the same night to say she thought she had found the person she was supposed to be with. He was smooth in the way that some people are smooth, always knew what to say, always dressed right, always looked you in the eye just long enough to seem sincere. My husband liked him well enough. I was more cautious, but I told myself that was just a mother's instinct to protect, and I set it aside. After my younger daughter died, my son-in-law started coming around more, not just when my older daughter visited, sometimes alone, or almost alone. He would stop by to check on us, he said. He would bring my husband fishing magazines and sit with him on the porch. He took a sudden interest in my husband's health, asking careful questions about the doctors we saw, the medications my husband took for his heart. At the time, I thought it was kindness. I see it differently now. 2 years after the funeral, my husband and I made the decision to update our estate documents. We had put it off because talking about it felt like giving something up. But our attorney told us we really needed to address a few things. We owned the house outright. We had retirement savings that were modest but real. And we owned a small piece of land outside of town, just 12 acres of marsh and pine that my husband had bought in the 1990s. Mostly because he loved it and didn't want to see it developed. By the time we sat down with our attorney, that land was worth considerably more than we had paid for it. The whole county had changed around it. We didn't tell anyone about the meeting with the attorney. We didn't think we needed to, but within a week, my son-in-law called and asked if we had thought about simplifying our finances. He mentioned that managing property could be a burden as people got older. He had contacts in real estate, he said. He could help us evaluate what we had. I thanked him and said we were fine. He asked again the following month, and again after that. My husband started noticing things I had been noticing but not saying out loud. The way our son-in-law would steer conversations back to the land, to the house, to our plans. The way he would ask questions about our health with a particular kind of attention that didn't feel warm, The way our older daughter would grow quiet when the subject came up, her eyes moving to her husband's face to see how he was reacting. One evening, my husband and I sat on the porch after dinner, and he said to me, very quietly, "Do you think something is wrong with our daughter?" And I said, "I think something is wrong with her husband, and I think she's gone along with it." We sat with that for a while, listening to the marsh. We should have gone to someone then. I know that now. I have had a great deal of time to know that now. But you have to understand, this was our daughter, the child I had carried, raised, watched grow. I kept looking for another explanation. I kept thinking there must be something I was misreading. The trip to the island was her idea. She called in early October to suggest it. There was a small barrier island about 40 minutes out by boat that her husband had access to through a friend, a private island, she said, with a house on it, beautiful views. She thought it would be nice for the four of us to spend a long weekend together. She said she missed us. She said it in the voice she had used as a girl when she wanted something, soft at the edges, and I felt the pull of it even though another part of me was already cold. My husband did not want to go. He told me privately that the whole thing felt designed, and I knew what he meant because I felt it too. But I could not find a reason that didn't sound paranoid. My older daughter was our only living child. If we refused and we were wrong, if we had misjudged her, if the trip was exactly what she said it was, I was not sure I could bear the cost of that mistake. So we went. I have spent a long time examining that decision, and I will probably keep examining it for the rest of my life. They picked us up from our dock on a Saturday morning in late October. The weather was cool and bright. The kind of fall day on the Carolina coast that looks like a photograph of itself. My son-in-law ran the boat. It was a center console, maybe 22 feet, one of those boats that can go fast when it wants to. My older daughter sat in the bow with her sunglasses on, her hair pulled back, looking at the water. She did not turn to look at me very often. The first day was almost normal. We walked on the beach. We had dinner at a long table on the screened porch of the island house, and my son-in-law poured wine and told stories and was charming in the way I had always found slightly too deliberate. My husband and I slept in a room at the back of the house, and I lay awake listening to the water and to his breathing. On the second night, my son-in-law suggested we take the boat out to watch the sunset from the water. He said the view from the Sound at dusk was something people drove hours to see. My husband said he was tired and thought he might stay back. My son-in-law said that was fine, he'd stay with him. The two women could go out if they wanted. Something about the way he said it made me look at my husband, and my husband looked back at me with an expression I recognized, the one that meant he was thinking the same thing I was thinking. I said I was tired too. I said maybe we could all just sit on the porch. My son-in-law nodded slowly. He said that was fine. He went inside to get drinks. My older daughter sat down next to me, and for a moment she looked at the water, and I thought she was going to say something real. I thought she was going to crack open, the way she used to when she was a teenager, and something was wrong. When she would sit beside me and stay quiet until the words found their way out. I put my hand on her arm. She stood up and went inside. My husband found me that night in the kitchen after the other two had gone to bed. He leaned against the counter and kept his voice low and said, "I think we need to leave first thing in the morning, before they're up, if we can manage it." I asked him if he thought he was being reasonable. He said he'd rather be unreasonable and wrong than reasonable and dead. We almost laughed at that. Almost. We did not leave in the morning. I don't know exactly how it happened. The sequence of it is still blurred at the edges in my memory. The way things are when your body has gone into a kind of shock. We were on the dock. My son-in-law had said he wanted to show my husband something about the boat's navigation system, something mechanical that would interest him. My older daughter and I were standing at the end of the dock looking out toward the Sound. The sun was behind the trees. The water was dark. I heard my husband shout. Not words, just a sound, sharp and short. I turned and I saw him going over the side. And then something hit me from behind, between my shoulder blades, and I was in the water. It was cold. Colder than I expected, even knowing the season. I went under, and the world became dark green. and I could not tell which direction was up. I had grown up around water. I made myself go still. I let my body find the surface. When I came up, gasping, I could see my husband a few yards away. He was struggling, but he was there. His arms working. The dock was above us. I could hear voices up there, 2 voices, talking quickly. I could not make out words. My husband grabbed onto a piling and I reached him. We were both hurt. I did not yet know how hurt. My shoulder was wrong in a way I couldn't think about directly. My husband's face was cut above his eye and bleeding into the water between us. He put his mouth close to my ear. He said, "Stay quiet, don't call out." He said it very steadily. The way he said things when he was most frightened, the more frightened he was, the calmer his voice became. I had known this about him for 40 years. I held onto the piling. The barnacles cut my hands. I did not make a sound. Above us, my son-in-law said something about the current. My older daughter's voice came back, ragged, asking if they were sure. He said yes. He said they weren't moving. He said to go back to the house. The tide would handle the rest. They needed to call it in as an accident in the morning. He said it the way you say a thing you have planned. Not panicked. Planned. I listened to my daughter agree. "I want you to understand what it costs to write that sentence." My daughter agreed. We stayed in the water for close to 40 minutes. I know because my husband still had his watch on and he checked it twice. The cold was a serious problem. My shoulder was a serious problem. My husband's heart was a serious problem. But we stayed quiet and we stayed in the water and we waited until the lights in the house went out. There was a small aluminum skiff tied to the dock's far end, the kind used for crabbing. My husband got into it first and then helped me, and the pain of that was something I cannot describe and will not try to. He could not start the outboard. The key was gone, but there were oars, 2 of them, and he used one and I used the other as well as I could with one arm. And we went across the sound in the dark. It took a long time. We were moving before we were thinking. The body finds a way. A man who lived on the mainland shore heard us. He heard the oars and came out with a flashlight and found 2 old people in a skiff at 2 in the morning, soaking wet and bleeding. And he did not ask a single unnecessary question. He brought us inside and called 911 and wrapped us in blankets and gave my husband aspirin because my husband asked for it and the man didn't know why but gave it anyway. I will be grateful to that man until I die. The hospital was in Beaufort. We were there for 4 days. My husband's heart reacted to the cold and the shock and required medication and monitoring. My shoulder was dislocated and my hands needed stitching. We gave our statements from our hospital beds, and the statements were long and detailed because we had both been paying attention. We had, without discussing it, both been memorizing. My older daughter and her husband were still on the island when the deputies arrived. My son-in-law told them we had gone for a walk on the dock after dark and must have slipped. He said they had searched for us. He cried when he was told we were alive. My daughter said she had been frantic. She cried too. The phone records from that night told a different story. So did the search history on my son-in-law's phone, which the investigators obtained through the course of their work. He had been researching water temperatures, tidal patterns, and the legal process for dissolving an estate when there are no living direct heirs. He had also been researching what happens to a will when the beneficiary predeceases the person who made the will. We had not yet changed our documents. Everything was still in my older daughter's name. My son-in-law was arrested 8 days after we left the hospital. My older daughter was arrested the same morning. I sat in our living room when I got the call, and I looked out at the dock and the marsh and the dark green water, and I felt something I still do not have a word for. It was not relief exactly. It was more like finally reaching the bottom of something. There is more. I have to tell you the rest, because it is the part that changed everything. During the investigation, detectives spoke to people who had known my son-in-law before he married my older daughter. They spoke to his former employer, his former landlord, and because investigators are thorough when they believe a pattern exists, they requested a review of the circumstances surrounding my younger daughter's death, my younger daughter's kayaking accident, It took several months. I will not describe those months in detail because I do not have the words for them and because some things should be allowed to remain private. But I will tell you what the investigators concluded. My younger daughter's death had not been an accident. The toxicology sample from the initial autopsy had not been fully analyzed. It was noted and set aside. An understaffed lab, an overworked technician, and when it was reanalyzed at the request of the investigating team, it showed the presence of a substance that would have caused sudden incapacitation. My son-in-law had been spending time with my younger daughter in the months before her death. She had confided in him about a conflict she was having with my older daughter. About money, specifically about the fact that she had begun to suspect my older daughter had borrowed from a joint account they had shared and not repaid it. She had told him she was thinking of confronting my older daughter. She had trusted him. He had access to her before she went out on the water that morning. He had been at our house the night before. I do not want to write what comes next, but I will, because she deserves to have it written. My younger daughter did not drown. She was incapacitated before she entered the water. Someone made it look like an accident, and for 4 years, we grieved an accident. We grieved something that had a different shape than we knew. There is a kind of anger that lives below grief. I did not know it was there until they told me. It is very quiet and very large, and it does not go away. My older daughter, when faced with the evidence, told investigators that she had not known the full extent of what her husband had planned regarding my younger daughter. She said she had suspected something but had not asked directly because she was afraid of what the answer would be. She said she had loved her sister. I do not know how much of that is true. I do not know how much of it I will ever know. She is my daughter, and I will carry that for the rest of my life. I do not expect you to understand exactly what that means. But if you have ever loved someone and also feared what they are capable of, you are closer to understanding it than you might think. My son-in-law was charged with the murder of my younger daughter and the attempted murder of my husband and me. My older daughter was charged as an accessory to the attempted murder. The trials were difficult. I testified in both. I sat in a courtroom and answered questions about my family in front of strangers, and I tried to keep my voice even, not for them, but because my younger daughter deserved someone to be steady on her behalf. He was convicted on all counts. The judge sentenced him to life without the possibility of parole. When the verdict was read, my husband reached over and took my hand and held it very tightly, and neither of us said anything for a long time. My older daughter received a sentence of 12 years. She is in a facility 2 states away. I have not visited. I have not been able to decide yet what it would mean to visit, or what I would say, or whether the person she has become is someone I know how to be in the same room with. I think about it. That is as far as I have gotten. My husband and I still live in the white clapboard house in Beaufort. We had the dock rebuilt last spring, new wood, new railing, different configuration. It looks different enough that I can stand on it without the memory sitting directly on top of me. Most days, I want to say something to you, and I want to say it plainly because I spent too long being indirect when directness might have saved us something. If a person in your life is consistently more interested in what you own than in who you are, pay attention to that. If someone's kindness appears to have a direction, always pointing toward the same thing, always circling back to the same subject, pay attention to that. If your body tells you something is wrong and your mind keeps finding polite reasons to ignore it, listen to your body. My husband and I both felt it. We named it to each other, quietly, on that porch in the dark. And then we second-guessed ourselves because she was our daughter and we had raised her, and we could not believe that the person we had raised was capable of what she turned out to be capable of. I am not telling you this story so that you will distrust your family. I am telling you this story so that you will trust yourself. There is a difference, and it matters. And it is sometimes the difference between everything and nothing. My younger daughter's name is carved into the oak tree at the back of our yard. My husband did it himself, with a chisel. The summer after the conviction, he spent 2 whole afternoons on it, and came inside with sawdust on his shirt, and didn't say much at dinner. He didn't need to. I knew what he had been doing and why. She loved that tree. She used to climb it when she was small. She said from the top, you could see all the way across the marsh, to where the water opened up and became the sound, and the sound went on, until it became the ocean. And the ocean went on forever. I think about that a lot, the way she described it not as something that ended, but as something that went on. She deserved more years. She deserved to sit in the sun at the end of a dock somewhere and read a book with her shoes off. She deserved every ordinary, unremarkable day she did not get. I cannot give those back. None of this can give those back. But she is not forgotten, and what happened to her is not buried. And the man who took those years from her will not see another free day for as long as he lives. That is the most I can do. I am still learning that the most you can do, when it is done with love and with honesty and with whatever courage you have left, is enough. The marsh outside my window is the same color it has always been. Dark green near the banks, almost black where the depth begins. But I have learned to sit with that water and not look away from it. Some mornings I take my coffee out to the new dock, and I stand there, and I watch the light come up over the grass and the herons move through the shallows, slow and deliberate, and unbothered by anything they cannot change. My husband comes out eventually and stands beside me, and we watch the light together, and neither of us says much, and that is enough. That has always been enough. We just needed to be reminded. Thank you for being here with me today. If this story reached you in some way, if you recognized something in it, or someone you love, please take care of yourself, and take care of the people around you. And please always, always trust what you already know.